Hey guys, it's Dovid Konikov, and now that the war has resumed, we're sort of back to square one. Israel is deciding between should it go into Gaza, should it take land, should it do another ceasefire, how should it go about the next few days and the next steps. And Eric Weinstein, had a few insights that I think are very important to check out with regard to how to fight jihadism and how they should be fighting Hamas. Check it out.
I don't believe that this is an occupied people. I don't believe that the Arabs are under occupation. And that's going to sound crazy because you're not exposed to any perspective that sounds like that. So how could you ever come to that conclusion? You have groups of people who are offered a state who we are not listening to. They do not want the state that they are offered. They are offered a choice between a state and a chant. And if you know the chant, it's from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea is what they chose. You could have a state, or you could have a chant. And they want the chant. They are the tip of the spear in the global battle against Western hegemony, against an occupying European power in holy Arab land. And they're not going to give up on that as a collective political entity for a relatively modest, prosperous state trading with the occupier, with joint economics, joint fate. That's very troubling to us because we have this idea of why wouldn't you want a state? You could have a state, you could be prosperous, you could send your kids to Purdue, and that's not easy for us. This is basically, if you think about motherhood, you don't think about Munchausen by proxy, right? Now, what do you do when you have a mother who comes to the hospital with a child who's continuously getting sick, and getting harmed? You have to ask, well, is it possible that the mother is harming the child? So you're about to see tiny children pulled out of rubble in northern Gaza. You're going to see it ad nauseum. You're going to see people rushing to the hospital. You're going to see mothers wailing. So we can talk about the whole thing about the martyrdom and how everybody prays that their family will be martyred. And you know what? Sometimes it's true. Sometimes you see on camera somebody saying, thank God they took my son, blah, blah, blah. But those are actually much more complicated things. Sometimes you turn the camera off and the person is crying because they know what they're supposed to say and they know what they're actually feeling. So my problem with this is that this is so much more complicated than the discussion we're pre-programmed to have that is guaranteed to fail. The richness of this problem, where Hamas is effectively the mother in a Munchausen by proxy situation, right? And the children, you're damn straight you're going to be pulling babies out of that rubble because that's what Hamas wants. And Israel cannot figure out how to extricate herself from this dance of death.
Yeah, so listen, there's 2 points being made here. Number one, he's saying that Hamas is evil. They're doing all these terrible things, and Israel is not evil, but Israel is playing into Hamas's game. And here he offers an actual alternative. See, a lot of people say, oh, Israel shouldn't do all these things. They don't offer any alternative. But here he actually offers an alternative, and I actually agree with him to an extent with regard to his solution for this dance of death, as he puts it. And I want to show you that clip as well. Here we go.
So, Eric, what is your vision for how we start?
My positive vision so that Sam, okay, look, because you asked for it, I think in all of the appearances, I've never actually shared this publicly. But you're forcing the issue and I'm not hiding from it. It's just, if we don't do anything different, we're going to get what Hamas wanted. So the first of all, the level of disagreement is very weird because it's 100% agreement on all sorts of factual things that you and I agree on. But no, the pictures really do matter because when you pull a baby out of the rubble, the key question is that rubble due to Hamas or is that rubble do to the person who dropped the bomb, right? So we have this concept of suicide by cop. You're about to see suicide by cop or infanticide by cop or Munchausen by proxy via cop, where the cop is the IDF.
Agreed.
Okay. If you want a positive vision, the baseline is Israel's going to flatten North Gaza. And there's going to be tons of death and destruction. And I would love to stop it. The right thing to have done, in my opinion, which will not be popular, which will be much more hated by Arabs than the idea of killing families through collateral damage, is very simple.
I know where you're going. I think I've read your mind, but go ahead. Yeah.
Israel has a claim on a lot of land that it controls. And the Arabs have a claim on the same land. There's two competing claims. If you take the Israeli claim, you say, look, this land is ours. But we are not pigs. And we are not so attached to this land, and we are not so blind to your needs that we would not give you a portion of land that we consider to be ours because it comes from our tradition. We have a schedule. If you want to live as brothers in peace, there are arguments between brothers and families, but if you want a prosperous state, you go this many days without any loss of life due to terror, jihad, or any of these things. And we will cede this land to your future state so that they're guaranteed that there will be a Palestine, even though we consider the land to be ours. You're interested in rape? Here's how many acres we will annex. You interested in murder? You interested in blowing up families? You want to take an Egged bus over a cliff? Whatever it is that you're thinking about, here's the schedule of the acreage that you will lose. We will have an annexing ceremony, and we will name it after your victims. Whatever town, whatever settlement that we're going to put in that, and it'll be permanently a part of Israel. And so that way, when you do something to us where you're begging us to kill you and your children, to blow up your buildings, to bulldoze your houses, we're not going to fall for it anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And what we're going to see is a larger and larger and larger state of Israel as your moronic death cult continues to grind against innocent life. So rather than have a single death, you're going to have a transfer of acreage. Okay?
But
and
that
way,
entails a lot of death.
Right.
You're taking that acreage with tanks.
Because
right?
every time, first of all, there's a lot of land that Israel already controls that doesn't need to be taken by a tank. You have a different situation in Gaza in particular, right? So Gaza, first of all, is not occupied, it was given. It's controlled in terms of its borders, but when you make videos showing how, oh, look, we dug up all these pipes, we figured out how to get over the fence with paragliders, et cetera, you understand now why the borders are being controlled. So yes, there's a certain amount that you have to do, but you can certainly minimize this. If suddenly a giant chunk of land disappeared from the West Bank, and that was the response, and nobody died, for example.
But how there are people on that land? I mean, how does nobody die?
Well, first of all, people have been transferred from land. Second of all, there are chunks of land, there are settlements and things that have not yet been formally annexed to Israel. What I'm trying to say, Sam, is that you're speaking to somebody who speaks only the language of violence. And the thing that I don't know how to communicate is I have a rule that I can't care about somebody else's children more than they care about their children.
They speak there's even a more important language, which is the language of religious symbols. This is where I thought you were going. It turns out telepathy isn't real. Or I don't know. Because
no, actually I was going there, but I saw what you were doing.
They care much more about buildings than about their children, right? I mean, if you really want to see the wheels come off, Israel could say, listen, return the hostages in 48 hours or we blow up the Dome of the Rock, right? And they just rig that building to explode. What do you think happens? The entire world lights up, right? I mean, like we're talking about, it's like that's Armageddon, right? Over a building, right? It's completely crazy. It's all upside down. The ethics of this are completely upside down.
You don't mean buildings, because there are plenty of apartment buildings where Hamas has, headquarters and builds rockets.
No, I'm talking about the Dome of the Rock. Yeah. So, but like if you're going to talk about emotional leverage, that's the point of emotional leverage. That's more than we're going to kill all your kids, that we're going to kill this one empty building, right?
Sorry, I don't know where we are exactly.
I'm just saying that is, if you're talking about this is where I thought you were going. I mean, Israel does not have leverage saying we're going to go back and take Gaza for ourselves, or we're going to take more of the West Bank. That's not leverage. The whole place is as big as his living room.
No, it's not true.
It's a tiny.
Sam, if you annex land to Israel, I guarantee you the world will freak out. It won't freak out as if you threatened Al-Aqsa. And I don't even want to talk about this because I don't want to get involved.
I'm not saying I recommend that. I'm saying that is how upside down the situation is. That would be the most provocative thing they could possibly do. That's actually under their control.
Let's interrogate this.
I actually agree, though, with Eric Weinstein here, more in the sense that Arabs care so much about land. If you take away their land, each time you take away their land in a permanent sense, I disagree with him that we should give it back, but in a permanent sense. So you say, listen, you effed around, time to find out, we're taking this land. You're damn right they're going to be pissed. You're damn right they're going to be, hollering, whatever. But it's a permanent solution. It's a permanent, stance. And then maybe if you're nice, we'll give you some more land. Versus you kill a bunch of people, you end up paying for the rebuilding of Gaza, and nothing really changes. Land is permanent. You're always going to have a million terrorists coming to kill you. It's not like killing 10,000 of them is going to really change anything. So I agree with Weinstein here, and Konstantin Kisin tries to push back on this, and I think he gets educated. Check it out.
Idea of annexing land, because I think Sam's critique, that I hear that I hear and agree with, is that if you start annexing land, you are going to have to do it by force, which is when you're back to square one. Israel is the occupier state, flattening cities, killing babies, etc. How is that different to where we are now?
I'm trying to say that in this cycle of violence, what is sought by the architects of murder, misery, and horror is reprisal. Physical, kinetic reprisal. I'm saying deny them that.
But you're not going to deny them that. You're going to make them, the jihadis, if we accept that they exist, which of course they do, they are going to scupper that process with everything they have by committing
they
atrocities.
do,
And then you're going to have to annex land on which Palestinians live, in which case you're back to collateral damage.
Again,
occupier.
look, you've got a terrible situation, okay?
We all agree on that.
I'm not coming up with this as this is what to do when you have two normal foes that are in dispute over mineral resources. We know what that is. This is not that. This is, please flatten our apartment buildings so that we can pull the babies from the rubble. We have the cameras and we know how to do this in 4K, right? This is a completely different sort of an enemy. And my claim is the story of Israel exercising power over Arabs who are not Israeli citizens is a cancerous story. And if Israel does not figure out how to get out of that story, even to the point where it's got a state that it has to go up against in a war, and I agree with Sam that we fetishize now a level of morality due to professional military ethics that is probably unsustainable in actual war between comparable rivals. We're going to have to get a lot less squeamish. People are going to die. This is what happens in war. There's always collateral damage. And the situation that I want, and again, this isn't particularly good for this 50th anniversary attack of the Yom Kippur War. I wanted this in place 20 years ago. Nobody would listen. And that was, based much more around blowing up a pizza parlor. Okay, great. So there's land that we've always thought was ours, and we're going to formally take it, and we're not going to have a reprisal, and we're not going to have a bulldozer knock over a house. Because Israel is being induced into a game theory according to the local rules of the Middle East, and then broadcast into a somewhat anti-Semitic West, this is the strategy of the Arabs in this situation. It's just how to get Israel to play by local rules of the Middle East for exports into a sophisticated, somewhat, mildly anti-Semitic West for people, particularly on the left, who don't particularly like Jews and want to be engaged in some sort of recapitulation of the civil rights era or South African apartheid.
I agree with that 100%. But that does not mean that the solution you proposed works. And that's the thing that we're talking about.
We just have to imagine what happens when you grab all that land.
Right.
Yeah.
Then Israel just has different borders, but they're still at war with jihadists and Hamas
You're going to be
and
at
everyone
war with
else.
jihadists forever, Sam.
Yeah, 100%. You're going to be at war with these bad guys forever. Hamas isn't going away. If it's not Hamas, it's going to be, other groups, Hezbollah, ISIS, etc., the Muslim Brotherhood. It's not going to go away just by killing people. It is an ideology, and you saw that with the Gazans. You saw that with a lot of these societies that are just so radicalized. And it's not a terrible solution. I mean, I disagree with some of his ideas of giving it back ever. I don't think that should ever happen. But the fact is, Israel can now go and destroy Gaza again. This is already the second time that when he recorded this video, this was right after October 7th. We can do it again. But then we'll probably have to repay for whatever we destroyed. Hamas probably won't be taken out of Gaza, because the West will stop us before we can do that. And nothing changes. So go back to basically having this threat on our border. Maybe the UN comes in for a few years, doesn't really do anything. Or we can actually take the West Bank. We can start taking land and say, okay, you're going to screw around? Thank you. This is our land now. And I don't really disagree. And I don't think that it's so crazy. I don't think it's radical. I think it's very reasonable. If you think that this is crazy, let me know in the comments below. I think that it is a solution in the sense that, yes, I would love for Hamas to be gone from Gaza. Yes, I would love for, a lot of these things to happen. But instead of that, let's just take land. Take land. It's a forever thing. It's not a, one-time thing. It's something that Israel can go, take it, and then, down the line, we'll always have that as a negotiating tool. My position is you take extreme, strong positions of this is mine now, sorry, and then it gives you a lot of rope to be able to sort of back off. And that's why Israel should take a lot of land and basically say, okay, this is our borders now. Oh, you really want a Palestinian state? Okay, here's a little bit of a strip on the side of, a little mile of land. That's the position that I take, and that's the position that Eric Weinstein takes, and I think that he's correct. For more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Thank you, and have a good one.